So what is Kotlin? Kotlin is a programming language created by JetBrains, and JetBrains is pretty much a IDE creator. What an IDE is, it's pretty much a fancy text editor, much like Microsoft Word or WordPress for programming languages. You need these editors because imagine trying to create a paper without WordPress or Microsoft Word. It would be very hard to do that in Notepad. These create the features to create these apps much faster. Kotlin runs on the JVM, which is the Java Virtual Machine. That pretty much means like Kotlin, in a very basic sense, Kotlin is Java. Now, Kotlin isn't exactly Java, it converts to Java, but we're trying to describe this in a very basic way. Let's just say Kotlin is Java. So why not learn Java instead? Kotlin was created for the features in mind and to make it very easy to use. With this, for creating Android apps, it's usually known to create them with Java, but now a lot of people are creating them with Kotlin instead, and actually companies are converting their Java apps to Kotlin, mainly because of the ease of use that Kotlin has. Very fun fact, Kotlin Island is what it's named after, Kotlin, and it's near St. Petersburg, Russia. Now we're going to create our very first Kotlin project. The first thing you need to do is open up IntelliJ and then create a new project. Now don't go to Kotlin and then Kotlin JVM. You want to go to Gradle because then if you go to just Kotlin, you won't have the certain features you need. Go to Gradle and then click on Kotlin Java. Your artifact ID is pretty much your project name. Let's do this tutorial 1. And I think we're fine here. And we're also click finish. Your project is going to pop up and it's going to say tutorial 1. The first thing you want to do is you want to generate an ant build. You don't need to know exactly what this is, just know that you have to do it. When that's done, we have to create a few files now. On tutorial 1, just right click and do new. Now do directory. Put in source. In that, create a new directory called main. And now add your Kotlin. All of our Kotlin files have Kotlin code in them are going to be inside Kotlin. So if we go to new and then Kotlin file class, we're going to have our very first Kotlin class. And that's how you create your first project. Before we get to use Kotlin, we need to download a few tools. In the last video, I said that Kotlin is pretty much like Java, mainly because it uses Java and uses the Java Virtual Machine. So we need to download Java's development kit. Just do Java JDK download in Google. And we go to the Oracle website, and yes, Oracle owns Java. You just press download on the JDK here. And then pick your operating system. If you're a Windows 64-bit, you would download the 64-bit. If you're a Linux 64-bit, you would download the 4-bit. The next thing we have to download is IntelliJ's IDE. Remember last video I said that IDEs are what JetBrains is making, and this is a IDE from JetBrains. This is going to make the development a lot easier for you guys. So just in Google, just put IntelliJ download or Bing, whichever one. I guess Google Chrome wants me to use Bing instead. So we go to the JetBrains website. Make sure you download IntelliJ IDEA. IDEA is our Java and Kotlin IDE. Let's download. Then press here whatever operating system you have. Whether you're Linux, Mac, or Windows, just download that. And go through the setup instructions, and you should have something very similar to me presented on the screen right now. This is what you should be seeing on the screen when you first start up IntelliJ. We're now going to create our first Kotlin code. First thing, we need to create our first Kotlin file. We need to right-click Kotlin, New, Kotlin file/class to create your Kotlin file. Now we're just going to put first tutorial. And now I'm going to create something, and you don't need to know exactly what it means yet, but just know that this is a block that will run our code. What this is this fun is short for function, and this function main pretty much is a starting point. It's what runs your code. So within these brackets, that is where your code is going to be. That's going to be running. So whatever you put in here when you start the application, that's going to run. So we're going to have something print on the screen, and it has to be within the main function. We're going to do a print line function. What this is print ln. Ln is short for line, and this is a function, and you know it's a function because it has these parentheses. What these parentheses mean is that this is the function name, and this is where your arguments go. So whatever you want. So the first argument, if we control space on print line, we can see that if we scroll down to print line, we have print line and a message. So you see these parentheses. Well, that's very familiar. These parentheses, it's saying that we need a message, and that's it. We need that as a character. That means we need it as a string. You don't need to know exactly what a string is yet, but just know a string is pretty much text. So we do need to put in one thing in here, and we're just going to put in hello there. Now if we click this Kotlin logo here, we left click it, press run, we can now run our code, and whatever inside of here is going to be running. So our print line is going to show hello, like right here, as hello there. We now just ran our first Kotlin code. Now we're going to do some very light math. So in the print line, we're going to print out the math. So 2 plus 2, very easy. We're going to get 4. But we can also do things like multiplication. We can do 2 times 3, and we can do that times with a shift and 8. Play that again, we should get 6. We can also combine things with parentheses, so we can do 2 plus 2, put that in a parenthesis, and we'll get 2 plus 2 equals 4 times 3, which is 12 now. Yep, we got 12. We can also do things like multiplication. We can do 12 divided by 6. We'll get 2. And we can also do things like modulus. If you don't know what modulus is, it's the parentheses. We'll do a 5. So we'll get the answer from this, then I'll explain it a little more. We'll do more of an example another time. So we have 2. Maybe thinking 2, why is that? How we get that 2 is we do 2, 12 divided by 5, 2. But also a way that I do it is how many times does 5 go into 12? And that's 2, so you get 10. And then you take the number 12 and you minus that, and that's how you get that 2. But now, what if we wanted to combine things? What if we don't want to have this in our print line? What if we have things like times 2 plus 9 minus 12 times 42? It gets to a big giant lamb numbers, and it starts getting turned to a lot. So that's what variables come into play. Variables are very much like boxes. They hold things. And make a variable, we can have something like val. We can have question 1 equals 12 modulus 5, right? That's 2. I'm trying to this a little easy. So we'll do the print line first, and then we'll verify with the variable. We got 4 from this. So again, question 1. This is a val, so this is a variable that's pretty much a box that contains this. So if I put question 1 here, in these parentheses, it's pretty much the same thing as 12 modulus 5. And we'll get the same results. We'll get 4. Run 4. And then we can have things like a question 2 equals 10 times 5, for example. 50. Go. So you can see that these vals, which are variables, are boxes. They're pretty much boxes that contain a value. So what happens when we want to change one of those values? So we can do question 1, which is 12 modulus 5, which equals 2. And we could do question 1 plus 2, right? That'll equal 4. So what this is doing is question 1 equals question 1 is our 12 modulus 5, which is 5, and then we're just putting 2 plus 2. So we're changing question 1, what it equals to. The problem is val is a value. It cannot be changed. Vals cannot be changed at all. They cannot be added, and they cannot be changed. But there is something that can be changed. That is a var, a variable. So we can see now we don't have that red squiggly line. See, when we put it back to val, we hover over this, val cannot be reassigned. And this IDE, this editor, is very smart. It knows when you have a val and you're trying to change it. So whenever you have a problem where it says a red squiggly line, Click on it and press the red light bulb and you see make variable mutable. What mutable means is that you can change it. So a var is mutable. So var equals mutable, val equals mutable. So mutable equals it can change. Immutable means it cannot change. So when you have a math problem and you specifically want it to change, so you want to add things to it, you want to change it, you always put it for var. But if you have something like your name, you don't want that to change. You don't ever want that to change. You don't want to change Ted to Ryan or some other name. You don't want the ability to change your name to Dylan, for example. You want it as Ted and you want to keep it as Ted and not change it. That's why we have the val. Now that we know what variables are and we know how to print lines onto the screen, we're going to have the computer actually greet us by our name. We're going to create something that says what's our name. We're going to have a print line that just says what's your name. And then we're going to get user input. So we're going to have the ability to place our name inside of there, and then it's going to tell you what your name is. So again, we want our name to not ever be changed. We want a val. Vals cannot be changed. Name equals, and then there's a fancy function just like print line. There's tons of functions, and there's one function called read line. What that does is it takes your input from here and it turns it into this variable name. And we'll show how that works by printing that out. By putting the variable in a print line, and then it will print that variable. So again, we run it. And we see, oh, what's your name? And we click on this, and then we have this blinking cursor here. We can put in Ted. It's green, that means we're inputting something. We press enter and just print out Ted. So this variable name with read line just read what we inputted. As soon as we pressed enter, it put it into this variable, and then we printed it out with print line. But now we can greet ourselves, say hello there, and now we're going to do something called concatenation. We're going to add our name. So what concatenation is pretty much we're taking hello there, and then with that plus sign we're just adding the name, so it'll be hello there Ted. Play this again. We see what's your name, but Ted says hello there Ted. Now we have a greeter, but we want to add more to this. We want where we input it to be at the end of this line. And how we do that is we can change this print line to a print instead. What that will do is instead of printing and then going to the next line, it will stick at the same line and then it will append to that line, and I'll show you exactly what it is. See how Ted is right under it? What print line does is it says, what's your name? And then after it does that, the line part, the ln, just goes to the next line. We have what's your name. Now we're near the question mark, no matter where I click. Over there. You put Ted. Hello there, Ted. And add more of this, we can put in there and a space to kind of tell that you need to add some input there. Ted. Hello there, Ted. Now we have a greeter. Now we're getting into types. So we have a value of number equals 2. And these quotation marks specify that it's a text, a string. And that's a problem because this is a number. It's not a string. It's not supposed to be a string, but this is making it a string. And the problem with that is if we have a variable of answer equals number times 5, get an error. We get this red, turns red, and we have an error. It doesn't tell us how to fix it exactly. It just tells us a whole bunch of things, but what we can't do is we can't multiply 5, which is a number, with string because they're totally different types. We need a number times a number. So to do that, we need to take off quotation marks, and we automatically changed the type. How do we know what type it is? Well, if I put quotation marks on string, and remember these args over here on the main. What this means is when you have this, it's pretty much means that you have a type array string. Now that's bad example. You won't know what an array is, but we can take this number and follow that. So we have a variable number of type string. So again, a string is a text. It's like a paragraph. It's like a document or a Microsoft Word. It's a string. It's text. Now we can change this. Now it's a number. But when in programming, it's called the integer. An integer is pretty much a number. So now it's complaining, saying the integer, blah blah. So it's saying that it's an integer. It's not a string. And we can go here and go to this light bulb here, change type of number. And we can see that we have an int now, so we have a variable number of type int. And we can see now that we have our two ints here. A 5 is an int, 2 is an int, a 10 is an int, a 2000 is an int, and string would be anything in these quotes. But if you want to do things with decimals, well, those are called doubles. Number. We want something like 10.6, right? Now what does that equal? So we can go here, we can put in, but this isn't an int because an integer is just a regular number. It's just 2, 4, 6, 22, 42. It's not 2.2. It's a double. So if we change this to a double, that. What a double pretty much is we have numbers on the side and then numbers on the right of a decimal. So if we put this decimal over in here, say we change this to an int. Well, now this can't be an int anymore because what this equals to is like 30, 32, 33.4 or something like that. 32.4. 31.8, but it's not an int anymore. It has a decimal in it. So we need to make it a double. And we can also print this out. You can see the double, because it will have decimal in it. And we could see here we have 31.7997. Now, there is another thing that has a decimal in it, and that's called a floating point float. For it. Change this to without telling you, I'll just show you what the difference between a float and a double. Now here we have a decimal number and it's a double. Now we want a float, so we need a float number. Problem with that is that it doesn't do the same standards of just putting a dot. We need 10.6. Let me just put an F afterwards. I'm not sure why you had an F, but you would often get confused between float and double. So the float you have to put an F after. So you put float number, and this is the only difference between these is one's a float, one's a double. If we run this, we'll see the difference between a float and a double pretty clearly here. We can see that a float is much smaller. It's less accurate than a double. See, it's pretty much almost half. That's pretty much the main difference between a double and a float.